This is not financial advice. I'm recording my thoughts about a high risk, high reward stock number 3. Previously, I have done 2 of these videos and this is the third stock. When I say high risk, high reward, it means that there is more probability for the stock to go to zero than become a multi-bagger. I'm repeating this again. When I say high risk, high reward stock, there is more probability that it can go to zero than it becoming a multi-bagger. So I wouldn't put more than 2% of my net worth into this company. So most probably that would be less than $3,000. The stock I'm going to talk about is Nu Holdings Limited. First, I'm going to talk about its stock performance in the past few years. Second, I'm going to talk about its business model. Third, I'm going to talk about its financials. Fourth is the reward part. And then fifth is the risk part. So let's get started with the stock performance. Nu Holdings stock is currently trading at about $5 with a market cap of about $23 billion. For the past 1 year, the stock is down about 43%. It still has a market cap of about $23 billion. To show a comparison, I'm going to show Lending Club stock. Lending Club's market cap currently is about $1 billion. So Nubank is 23 times bigger in market cap when compared to Lending Club. When compared with SoFi, which has $6 billion of market cap, Nu Holdings is 4 times bigger. Now let's talk about Nu's business model. As you can see on the screen, Nu's ecosystem includes credit cards, debit cards, mobile payments, Pix acquiring, that's also a payment system, personal loans, invest accounts, Nu Life. Now let's look at some numbers. Nu has about 74.6 million customers, out of which almost 70 million of them are from Brazil. They're getting started in Mexico and Colombia now, and their deposits are about $15.8 billion. And one thing that I like is Nu maintains excess liquidity. Its loan to deposit ratio is 25%, so they're being conservative. And one important thing to note is that they have a low cost to serve. The monthly average cost to serve per active customer is at $0.9 in the latest quarter. So now let's look at this geograph. Almost 44% of adult population in Brazil are enrolled with Nu, and about 2% adult population in Colombia and 3% in Mexico. So they're just getting started in Colombia and Mexico, and they're pretty good in Brazil already, but there is still room for growth. Now let's look at the cost structure. The cost to acquire a customer is about $6.5, which is really low. Cost to serve, as I said, is less than $1 per active customer, and currently they have about $15.8 billion of deposits. Let's now look at Nu's underwriting process. In this graph, it's actually showing that Nu has so good underwriting process that when compared to the average market in Brazil, their delinquency rate is lower. So which means that they have a very good underwriting process. Now let's look at the financials of Nu. In 2021, they made about $1.7 billion of revenue, and in 2022, they made about $4.792 billion of revenue. That's about 182% increase in revenue in 1 year. And when you look at the gross profit margin, it's about 35% in 2022 and it was at 43% in 2021. So, and now let's look at the profit loss statement. As you can see, the highlighted numbers are the revenues and then gross profit. And when you look into the loss for the year, it's about 364 million in 2022 and it's about 170 million in 2021. So the loss has doubled almost, but at the same time their revenue grew more than 180%, right? So let's look at their cash position. Their cash and cash equivalents are about $4 billion. So they're in good shape. They have a long runway. Now that we're done with the financials, let's look at the reward part. For that, I'm going to do a 2027 evaluation for this company. In 2022, they made about $4.5 billion of revenue. And for the estimated growth rate, I'm assuming 40% growth rate. Remember that for the past 2 years, they grew their revenue in triple digits. For 2022, they grew their revenue by about 180%, right? And we do know that they have a long runway in Mexico as well as Colombia. And they already tapped 44% of the adult population in Brazil. So I'm not sure how much growth they can still have in Brazil. But 40% seems reasonable to me, with which I'm going to assume that they're going to make $24 billion of revenue in 2027. Their gross margins are in the order of 35% to 43%, as you have seen in the financials. And because of that, I'm going to assume 15% net profit margin, with which this company would be making about $3.6 billion of net income in 2027. So there's a typo there. It should be 2027 net income. Now, for a company that's growing at 40% year on year and have 15% net profit margin, I'm going to give a range of multiples: 25, 27.5, and 30. So on the lower end, if I apply a 25 multiple, this company would be worth about $91 billion. Currently, they have about 4.824 billion outstanding shares, and they are diluting the shareholders very slowly. But I'm going to be conservative and assume 4% dilution for the next 5 years, with which this company would have 5.869 billion outstanding shares. So when I divide $91 billion of market cap with 5.869 billion outstanding shares, the resulting stock price would be about $15. And it would be $17 if I apply a multiple of 27.5, and when I apply a 30 multiple, that would be about $19. So we're looking at 3xing our money, more than 3x in 5 years, which is a great return. But if I look into another evaluation where I assume 50% growth rate year on year, remember for the previous evaluation I used 40%, now I'm going to use 50%, which I think is still possible. If I use 50%, I'm coming up with $22 on the low side and $26 on the high side for this company, which represents almost 5xing our money, or about 400%. So in this case, if I buy the stock at $5 now, in 5 years, I can potentially get to between $22 and $26. So that's between 4x and 5x my money in 5 years, which is a really attractive gain. Now that we're done with the reward part, let's talk about the risks. The number one risk is that by buying Nubank, I'm having a macro exposure to Latin America, and Latin American countries like Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia have higher inflation, and they also have high unemployment, right? So that's a risk, and Nubank can potentially face a lot of delinquencies because they're in the credit card business and personal loan business, right? So that is a big risk that I'm running when compared to the USA, which has significantly less unemployment rate and less inflation, right? So that is risk number one. Number two is the governments in Latin America are less stable. So if there is an issue with the government, they can significantly affect the business of Nu Holdings, and that's another risk that we are running. The third risk is almost 44% of adult population in Brazil already enrolled in Nu, and they're counting on Mexico and Colombia as the emerging markets for them, and they're expecting a lot there. But if they do not succeed in Mexico and Colombia, we do not know how much room there is left in Brazil because they already covered 44% of the population. So the growth rate can significantly decelerate. We do know that they grew their revenue by 180% last year, right? And we are assuming about 40 to 50% year-on-year growth for the next 5 years for this company. So all of it cannot come from Brazil. It has growth in Mexico and Colombia has to be significant for those targets to realize. So that is another risk. And then the last risk is the currency exchange. So USD is very strong at this point, and the currency in Latin America can lose its value very quickly. We have seen the likes of Venezuela, right? So that is another risk that we're going to run by buying a stock that is outside the US in Latin America. So these are the 4 risks that can significantly affect the Nu stock's reward and can get the stock to zero. So overall, my plan is to buy about $3,000 of this stock. I think $5 is a good buy price in my opinion, because I'm looking at 4x to 5x my money in the next 5 years. I'm going to buy this stock slowly. To start with, I'm going to buy 100 shares of Nu Holding today, and for another 100 shares, I'm going to sell a put at $5. It's currently at about $92. That means I will get $92 as a premium, and if the stock goes to $5 and somebody exercises their option, then I'm forced to buy 100 stocks at $5. But since I already collected $92 in premium, the stock is going to only cost about $4 to me. So I'm going to make another video about selling puts But for now, that is my plan, to buy 100 shares immediately and another 100 shares via selling a put. And I'm going to acquire another 300 to 400 shares this year. As the year goes by, I want to look at its price action. Maybe it'll fall to $3 or $4, right? So I can get a better bargain. So I'm in no hurry to buy this stock, and the maximum limit I'm looking at is about $3,000 in this. So these are my thoughts about a high risk, high reward stock, which is Nu Holdings. Please let me know in the comments if I missed anything, if I'm maybe taking higher risk than the reward.